Hi, my name is Luc Leblanc. I'm the developer of Auriga, and I'll show you what's new in version 1.24. Okay, since a long time we've been able to indicate in sessions or surveys the precision of our instruments. Most of us didn't use this because it was of no use in Auriga, so it's been left to 0 most of the time. This is no longer the case with this version. You can globally indicate the precision of our instruments, classic instruments, laser meter, the electronic heading azimuth device, same for the slope, and you can also indicate the station position error, that is the difference between the actual station position and where we did put the measuring instrument. If you bothered to input precision into sessions, you can select this checkbox here and use the precision in sessions when it's not 0. Okay, what is this for? Well, if you go loops, we have the relative error for closure, and this relative error is actually the closure error of the loop over the overall length of that loop. Now we have the quality of that loop. It's equivalent to the sigma value in compass. It is the absolute error in meters divided by the expected or normal error of the loop given the instruments we use, their precision, the number of survey shots, how vertical they are, and everything. So the smaller this number here, the better it is. We can sort the list by this number. We can sort it decreasing, and we got very poor loops in this case, and we should really fix those loops. And there comes a new feature in Auriga124, is the analysis of the loops, also known sometimes as blunder detection. Let's consider a much simpler artificial. This is a fake cave. We're about to complete this loop here, and let's see what happens. Suppose we add this survey shot. We're aiming 4 to 1, so we add this this new survey shot here, so that's 4 to 1. It's 4 meters long. It's true north and horizontal. When we save it, we get the usual loop completed alert as before, with the absolute error, the relative error in both horizontal, which is the case here, and vertical, but we also have the quality of that loop, and it's a very poor quality loop in this case. We can analyze this loop, but right now we'll just go back to the map. Okay, it gets colored in highlight because this is the current loop. Let's go back to default coloring. Okay, so we have our survey shot 4 to 1 here. That actually leads to station 5, and in dotted red here we see the closure error. So unsurprisingly, if we launch an analysis on this loop and we check for wrong stations and the survey shot data, what do we get? Well, obviously, if our 4 to 1 survey shot were 10 meters instead of 4, we'd have a perfect closure. Similarly, if we had a shorter right side on this shot here, same. This is less likely. Those are hypotheses here. You have to decide yourself what makes sense and what doesn't, and what explains the error in the loop. Let's look at the third hypothesis. Survey shot 4 to 1. If we changed it end station from 1 to 5, we'd get a very good closure error, and this is probably what happened. So if we go back to our map here, that makes sense. In this case, it's pretty obvious because it's so few shots, and it's so simple because it's a fake cave. If we go to a more complicated cave like this far south cave here, might be harder even with the loop analysis to find our way. Where are the loops in this case? So there are many ways to work on loops on a complicated cave. One is to isolate those loops in separate caves. And for that, let's go to operations form, previously called, it was formerly known as maintenance. It's been renamed operations because that's what it does mostly. And since the beginning, we've been able to apply operations to service shots, to caves, to stations, to sessions, and caves, of course. Now we can apply operations to loops. What can we do on loops? Well, we can change our closure attributes and everything. We can close loops, but we can export a loop into a new cave, and we can analyze a loop. If we analyze a bunch of loops, we can analyze them into text files on the memory card or as memos in the built-in memo application. Let's look at this option here. We can export loops into new cave, and we don't want to handle all loops, we just want to handle the bad ones. So let's work on a selection of loops. So far we got none selected, but we can arrange that. We got all our loops here. Let's do a smart selection. We just tap select, and we could select by quality index. Suppose we want to fix all loops that are beyond 2.5 in quality. So we apply this selection. Now we find 9 loops out of 77 that meet this criteria. So we're done with this. We see our selected loops here in the whole list of loops. If we filter by selection, we just see what's selected. So we're fine with this. We're done. Now we're going to apply this operation of exporting into new cave on just those 9 loops. So if we do this, now we go back to our main form, and we see all those loops as separate cave databases. We could have joined them all together. In this case, we can handle them separately. What gives us this operation is smaller caves, easier to manage, easier to see, much faster to compute. Okay, and if we go to one of these loops and we fix it, we find the erroneous service shot and we fix it, after that we can just export it back into the original cave. We can export the whole of this loop. It's only one loop in this case. We export it back, and if we export it and we've modified service shots, we have the option to replace the service shots in the original file by the new ones, or to duplicate them depending on how we want to work. Most of the time replacing should be the proper option. Okay, so let's go back to our view of the whole cave here. We've selected, let's recall, we selected loops. Okay, these loops contain service shots, and implicitly when we selected those loops, the service shots were selected from those loops. Now we got 147 service shots out of 1500. That's about 10%. And if we go back to this map here, we can filter by selection. Now what do we see? We just see what's selected, those service shots that have been selected. And what kind of service shots we see? Well, we see one loop here, and all others are grouped here, and they remain properly positioned because all the underlying survey shots are there. They're just not visible. And if we add new survey shots to this cave by mapping further, the new survey shots will be automatically added to the selection, and we can see our cave expanding without being encumbered by the rest of the cave. And this can be very convenient to, for instance, just select all the survey shots in a session or survey or a passage or whatever. You just determine the way you select things, and new survey shots are added to this. So that's almost everything. Well, I wanted to show you on version 124. I think the best thing is you check the list of changes, you review the manual to see what's been added to this version, and I expect your comments. Thanks. Goodbye.